Who was Cleopatra? Black, white, Greek, Egyptian? These are valid questions, and people love to dig into her past. But first, look at that picture. This is how Cleopatra's death was written in history. She let a poisonous snake bite her. That's the story you have seen in movies, paintings, and textbooks. It's dramatic, it's sad, it's romantic. Only one problem: it almost certainly never happened. That snake story was invented by her enemies. It was a Roman propaganda designed to paint Cleopatra as weak, as exotic, and emotionally out of control. The real way she died? Far smarter, far stranger. But right now, just leave the topic of who Cleopatra really was. Black, white, Greek, Egyptian, or something else entirely, as we'll cover that in another video. And let's just focus today on how Egypt's last queen really died. For 2000 years, artists have loved painting Cleopatra with a snake. You see it in museums, you see it in movies, even in cartoons. The most famous version comes from the Roman writer Plutarch. He wrote that Cleopatra let a small viper bite her arm. 2 of her servants died the same way. That's the story most people know. But here's the thing Plutarch himself admits. He wasn't there. He wrote his account about 100 years after Cleopatra died. And even he says, no one really knows for sure. So let's go back to what we do know. It's August 12, 30 BC. Cleopatra is in her palace in Alexandria. Outside, a Roman general named Octavian has taken over the city. Octavian wants to capture Cleopatra alive. He wants to take her to Rome and parade her in chains, like a trophy. But for a queen of Cleopatra's caliber, that would be the worst humiliation possible. But Cleopatra refuses to be a trophy. She locks herself inside her own tomb, a strong stone building she had built years ago. She sends Octavian a final message. Then she waits. When Octavian reads the message, he knows something is wrong. His soldiers rush to the tomb. They break down the door. They find Cleopatra lying on a golden couch. She was wearing her royal robes. But here's the strange part, the part the Romans never forget. There was no snake in the room, no bite marks on her skin, no dead reptile anywhere. So what killed her? Let's think like detectives. Why is the snake story is so unlikely? Reason 1. Snakes are slow and unreliable. A cobra bite doesn't always kill you. German historian Christopher Schaeffer, who studied this in detail, points out that a cobra isn't always fatal. And when it is fatal, it takes hours. The victim suffers paralysis, vomiting, swelling, and a slow, painful death. Cleopatra needed to die quickly before the Romans broke down the door. She wouldn't choose a slow, messy, uncertain way. Reason 2. No snake was ever found. The earliest historian to write about Cleopatra's death was Strabo. He lived at the same time as Cleopatra. And what does Strabo say? 2 possibilities. Either she used a poisonous ointment or she was bitten by an asp. Then there is Cassius writing about 200 years later. He says the only marks on her body were tiny pricks on her arm, which could have been from a snake fang or from a hairpin. But again, no snake in the room. Reason 3. Cleopatra cared about her image. She was a queen. She wanted to look peaceful and beautiful, even in death. A snake bite is ugly. It causes swelling, discoloration, and sometimes spots on the skin. But poison can make you look like you are just sleeping. So if not a snake, then what? This is where the story gets very clever. She found the perfect recipe. It was called the Theban Brew. First, hemlock, the same poison that killed Socrates. It stops your breathing. Second, opium. It puts you into a deep, dreamless sleep. Third, aconite, also known as wolf's bane. It quietly stops your heart. Mixed together, you don't choke, you don't scream, you just fall asleep. And a few minutes later, your heart stops. Cleopatra tested it on prisoners. She knew it worked, and August 12, she drank it. Ancient writers tell us that Cleopatra did something very unusual. She wanted to find perfect poison. Not too painful, not too slow, and it had to leave her body looking peaceful. So she tested different poisons on prisoners who were already sentenced to death. A modern scientific study from 2021 confirms this. Cleopatra, the study says, began to test them on prisoners to see the different reactions. She watched, she took notes, she learned which poisons caused pain and which caused a gentle sleep. The Theban Brew was her final answer. The Roman found her looking like a sleeping queen. No snake, no pain, just peace. But why did the Romans tell everyone it was a snake? Because the truth was dangerous for them. If Cleopatra carefully tested poisons, mixed her own recipe, and chose exactly how to die, what does that make her? A scientist? A strategist? A queen who refused to lose? The Roman leader Octavian didn't want people to see her that way. He wanted people to see her as a strange, exotic, emotional woman, not a clever enemy. So he spread the snake story. It made her death seem like a dramatic accident, a sad romance, not a political protest. As criminal profiler Pat Brown writes in her book, The Murder of Cleopatra, the snake story was likely propaganda. And it worked. Painters loved the snake, movie makers loved the snake, even Shakespeare wrote about it. Over time, the myth became stronger than the truth. But now you know better. Cleopatra didn't need a snake. She had a plan, she had science, and she had the courage to control her own story. So next time you see that famous painting, you can smile and say, actually, that's not what happened. The truth is less famous, but way more interesting. Cleopatra died like a queen on her own terms with a recipe she created herself. No snake, just science. Thanks for being a history detective with me. If you want more stories of clever people from the past, hit subscribe. And remember, we'll cover who Cleopatra really was, black, white, Greek, Egyptian, or something else entirely in another video. See you then.